Okay, good evening, everyone. We are going to get started. Good. On. Okay, so good evening. Welcome to the RSU 14 Windham Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. It is 6:30 and we are in the Windham Town Council chambers. You will notice there's a different face sitting here tonight. Our board chair is unable to be with us in person. However, she is joining via Zoom and watching online, just so everyone knows. Mr. Howell, a roll call, please.
Kate Bricks. Jessica Bridges.
Here.
Jenny Butler.
Here.
Marge Gavoni.
Here.
Pete Hensler.
Here.
Char Jewell.
Here.
Kate Levier.
Here.
Scott McLean. Mike McClellan.
Here.
Al Potter.
Here.
Thank you. And if you would all please rise and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Howell, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
There was one adjustment to the agenda which went out earlier. Initially, there was another meeting scheduled prior to this. That meeting was canceled, and a new agenda went out this afternoon. So it's actually the agenda we're following tonight is the agenda that went out originally last Friday.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now we will take public input. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. I do just want to, it's been a little bit since we have all met. And I do just want to note that this is a time to hear from the public for items that are not on the agenda. And you will see that on the agenda this evening is the school reopening plan, which does include the district's recommendation for masking as an agenda item. We will be taking public comment during that agenda item. So during this public input time, we would not be commenting on masking because we'll take it during that time. I do want to remind everyone that for this public input period, we still will be holding the 3-minute time limit. So when your time has expired, we do respectfully ask that you finish speaking and allow us to move on to the next person. We do really appreciate you all complying with this. While I know it does not always feel great for everyone to be stopped as they're speaking, it does allow us just to hear from everyone in a relatively timely manner. If you do have a question when you're up there that does require follow-up, please send an email and we will get back to you. So I will open it up to public input for items that are not on the agenda.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Cole. I teach first grade at Windham Primary School. I'm also a resident of Windham. I just also wanted to make a request as a participant that any sidebar conversations be held outside the chamber. I don't know if we have an SOP for that, but it can be very distracting and in fact can interfere with people's ability to participate fully in the meeting when there are comments and conversations happening that are not pertinent to or part of the presentation being made at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input?
My name is Ken Anderson, and I'm from Windham. First thing I need to do is apologize to the board members and anyone listening for my outburst last week towards the end of my 3-minute window. That was unbecoming of a Christian man, and I do apologize to each member. Beyond that, I'd like to approach the board with some concerns I have regarding the equity and inclusion situation we're all facing in our culture. It's become quite prevalent and pervasive, the doctrines by which that holds. And it's actually a religion that's being forced down our children's education, and it's actually circumventing a lot around what the country was settled on, which is Judeo-Christianity. And I know all of our founders knew this. Maybe they all didn't agree with it, but they all agreed to disagree. And I feel it's very much of a problem that we're facing if we don't start teaching our kids academics more, and the Constitution, the history of this country, is very pertinent to our position as parents. And that's partly why we're here this evening, to talk on those agendas so that we can come to an understanding with one another and further our efforts in that direction. So with that said, I appreciate you all very much, and next time I'm here, I will first start out with grace, and I will also follow up with truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sean Morrison. I have a sophomore at Wyndham High School. I just wanted to stop in tonight and express my gratitude to Principal Karen, Assistant Principal Rossetti, and Assistant Principal Mishu, and Officer Fournier. Today, some students demonstrated a walkout for their displeasure with the masking, and I thought that the faculty was excellent with the kids. They supported the kids. They let the kids have their time to have a voice. And my son said they were really great and really nice. They took the students' safety first and foremost and had them move from a parking lot closer to the school under a canopy. But they let them have their time. They did ask them to come back to class after a certain amount of time. But I thought that it was nice. It was handled well. It gave the kids a chance to have their voice, and I appreciate that. And I just wanted to give them kudos. And then the last thing I wanted to do, my son was going to come tonight. Last minute, he decided not to. And I asked him, I said, is there anything you'd like me to say on your behalf? And these are the two things he said. He said, it feels like some teachers are there to mass police you and not teach. And he said, it's ridiculous how I'm told to put up my mask when I'm taking a drink of water. So just two things our kids are dealing with the mask, but thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for items not on the agenda?
Good evening, Ken Clark. I was kind of want to follow up a little bit on topics we've addressed many times here, and kind of what Ken was following up on. The stuff that's being taught and how it's being taught in the schools is, to me, and I don't know how anyone else sees any difference, incredibly divisive. I brought up these books before about talking about 50% of the population in Oakland, California is lesbians. This is in my 11-year-old's class. This book here, Ghost Boys, how a white officer shot a black kid. He did have a plastic gun. They thought it was funny he could get into school. I just don't see how this is going to benefit kids. Martin Luther King, we judge people on the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Let's keep it at that, okay? Why can't we say something like the United States was the quickest country in the world to abolish slavery? That positive thought. People are being taught to not like this country and hate this country, and we wonder why everything's going on. It should not even be approached in the kids' school at this age. Kids come to school as young kids this tall as friends, no matter what color they are. And then they get to school and they get this crap and it divides them. They get on the playground now and have to figure out all this stuff about what sex are you? You transgender, bigender, gay? You must be something. And I've asked these questions before and I've got no answer as to how this benefits the kids. I'm let down by you guys. It's like you don't care. I think you do, but why aren't you acting on this? I don't see how it benefits us. I've talked a lot about what we shouldn't do. It's gross. That being said, what about a positive power class about the power of positive thinking? Something that motivates kids in a positive way. There's books out there, Dale Carnegie, Think and Grow Rich. What's his name? Anthony Robbins, The Most Powerful Tool About Bullying. He has classes that kids can take that motivates young kids to be positive, treat each other well. Okay? There's a story about the water boy who's different. He dresses different. His hair's a mess. He was getting picked on. 3 of the football players says, you know what, let's take care of this. They all dressed like him and made him part of the group. You have 3 football players. Next thing you know, the whole school is doing it. So you got to tell the kids, we can work together to get rid of bullying. You go to a teacher, it gets an argument, it's crap. If we tell and lead by example and give good ways that people can learn how to do this stuff, those are the tools we need to give them. This book here is unbelievable, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it's not just monetary, okay? It's about your soul, what to do. And yes, it is about business, but kids need to learn that. It talks about if Henry Ford and the assembly line, we all know what that is, I hope, you know? Maybe kids don't, all right? And if you want an opportunity, get prepared for it and meet so you're ready for when that opportunity comes to you, okay? The most powerful line in this is, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. When's the last time any child of any color was told that? Any kid, a white child for that matter, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, think about that. Will that help our kids more than this stuff? Seriously? And there is a chapter in this book about sex, okay?
I'm sorry.
I just want to say this one thing, please. Sex is the most, sex is the most powerful emotion people have. It's true, the most powerful. If it's misdirected, it's the most destructive.
Mr. Clark, thank you.
You're welcome.
Last call for items not on the agenda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Robin Frost. I've been a longstanding resident of Wyndham, as well as a parent in Wyndham. Had 3 older children graduate through with the Wyndham district, and have to say that was some of the better moments in our lives. And quite frankly, I don't recognize our community or our school at this point in time. And I agree with Ken. Diversity is not what we're looking at is, having separation in the room and such. Makes me very, very, very sad. It also makes me very sad that the victims that are this, or the people that are, including the teachers and everybody that's inside the walls of those schools, that are not being recognized, versus the people that are in administrative offices and not being bound by the same rules. So I think that what I want the community to understand is that myself and another parent sent FOIA requests to the superintendent and the board, and the FOIA requests are in regards to the ESSER grants and regards to the requirements for the ESSER grants, which include 5 different requirements and information that we need. It's been over a month and we have not received that, as well as the disclosure that needed to be made to the public in regards to the entire application itself, which that was not done. And so we need information where that was actually made clear. So that information is important, because that information drives on decisions that this board and the superintendent have made, which affect everybody. And what continues to drive through this diversity, which we don't need, as a community, we should be uniting together and working together to come up with a solution and be problem solvers, versus constantly arguing or fighting over anything. So it's time that we guys, we are like, look to your neighbor. These are the only people that are going to make a difference and a change, and we have to do that. Otherwise, we are destroying each other and ourselves. So just look, besides the fact that people are independent, can make their own decisions, and respect that. And I think that if we can do that, that will come back to the community that I once knew and the school system I once knew. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is kind of getting in the way. Can't really see the person speaking. I think that might be better. Hi, I'm Kristen Day. I wanted to say that I find it really disappointing that on a meeting day where there was going to be such a topic that was dividing this community, that a venue was not chosen that could even sit all the people. I'd like everyone in the hallway to come on in. Everybody should feel welcome to be here and to speak. And I don't feel like this venue was chosen appropriately. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Napolitano. I live in Wyndham, and since many of you know, since November, I've been coming to the school board meetings, and I've been asking for transparency. Some of the topics that we've asked for is a workshop with the parents, and Kate Brick said no. Not really sure why. that would be a great opportunity, and I know other board members have mentioned it. I'm very disappointed that hasn't happened yet. We've asked for an online page to list most frequent questions and answers, and Kate said no plans. I'd like to know why. We've also discovered that the same questions have been emailed in, and we've been getting different answers. So that would eliminate that, and then we wouldn't have to keep going back and forth and asking the same questions. I've asked the school for a scientific definition of a boy and girl. The response that I'm getting is with a gender identity definition, not a scientific definition. So I'd like to get that answer. We've talked quite a bit about the civil rights team and what's age appropriate and what's not. I'm still waiting for an update to find out when the team will be spoken to explain what's appropriate and what's not. For those that are not aware, in September a survey was sent out that was collecting data to profile our students, defining religion, asking about sexual preference, and among other things that were actually good. But there was no need to be talking about sex and religion to the children without parental consent. I still want to know where the information went and how it's being used. I haven't got a response for that. So I'd like to have somebody from the team come in, and it'd be great to have them at a board. We have a Black Lives Matter flag still up in the high school. Told that it was handmade and it's a part of freedom of speech, but yet the thin blue line flag was taken down. I've asked about the pro Second Amendment material, such as a shirt or flag, as it's written in the Constitution, and the response I'm getting back is, I'm a child or a high school student cannot have a gun in school. That's not what I asked. I'd just like to know if they can wear something equivalent to freedom of speech. We have a critical race theory and equity issue with our school. A month ago, I read a book that very well illustrated critical race theory for a lot of people that didn't know. I didn't know what that was until this past fall. It's very disturbing. Another word that we're using, it is called, is equity, and you already heard an explanation earlier about how dangerous that is in our school system. I believe that it is getting in between the parent and the child. The school does not have a right to do that. So, and one more thing we've asked for is to develop the Code of Ethics Committee, because we've had a board member that has broken several Code of Ethics and the guidelines that are written. However, we've learned that there's no consequence for breaking those rules. So we've been asking over and over to get that. Thank you. Jenny, I'm going to ask again for your resignation. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Adam Zajac. For those of you that don't know me, my children are the ones that walked out of school today. In the middle school, the elementary school, and the high school. One thing I'd like to say is, in the middle school, when my child walked out, he was very, very respectful, but he's just over the masks, and I am too. I think most of these people are. So when I got the phone call to go pick him up, they put him in a conference room all by himself, and that's where he had to wait for, I don't know, probably 15 minutes until I got there. So that absolutely frustrates me. And then secondly, when I went to pick up my other son at elementary school, I have pictures on my phone right now of several people in the office not wearing masks. Several people are walking in and out of there, and I don't understand how my kid has to go into a conference room by himself for 15 minutes, and the elementary office doesn't have to wear masks.
And we will be talking about masking.
Listen, they are very, very nice. They're very, very nice women, and
we do also want to make sure that we're just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we don't want to be talking about any personnel, so please.
I'm not talking about any personnel. I'm just saying that they are very nice in there, and I feel bad for bringing them up right now, but it is a major hypocrisy right now. And then moving forward, just on the news, last week was the state championships for the girls' basketball and the boys' basketball. Masks belong on your face. If that's going to be mandatory, they do not belong on your chin playing basketball. All right? So it's just ridiculous that you guys are mandating masks, but you aren't mandating proper mask usage. I deal with OSHA all the time and safety, and these masks do not work keeping
Yeah.
the viruses in and out, okay?
We do have a time to, I'm sorry, again, and this won't go against your time, I heard that. But we are talking about masking, and there will be a recommendation coming up, and that's when we will take public input based on masking.
Good.
So
And
you're welcome to come back up and talk then
Great.
as well.
I definitely will.
Thank you.
My problem also is, I just lost my train of thought. I'm okay with freedom of choice. I'm not trying to eliminate masks, period. But I have OSHA certifications, and if anybody here would like to learn how to properly wear these masks, I'm more than happy to train and certify any of the students that would like to properly wear their masks so they feel unsafe, just like the teachers that are there, because it's not properly being worn. That's a major problem.
Thank you. And again, we will be talking about masking, and that will be the time to have input on masking. Right now is for items that are not on the agenda, and that is our next agenda item.
For tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry for
That's okay.
interrupting that.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Anyone else for items that are not on the agenda?
My name's Stephanie Smith. I have a senior and an 8th grader. We just moved here from another country. My kids really like it here. They've acclimated very well. What I'm finding disturbing from listening to all this is that when we moved from another country, we specifically chose to come back to Maine. My husband grew up here, graduated from here, because we wanted a small town feel. We've lived where the school district was 100,000 kids, and I wanted to do one high school. I wanted that small town feel because my kids never had that. They were getting lost. And CRT and stuff was starting to creep in. I didn't move here for that. I moved here so my kids could have, and I know it's a different time, what I grew up in, what everybody else grew up in. A normal childhood where you're not getting stuff shoved down your throat. I've seen it overseas. I've lived in a country where everybody thinks Americans are the most racist people in the world. I've lived in other countries. That is not the case. But we're teaching it over here. Don't teach it to our kids. It doesn't need to be shoved down their throat. Kids love other kids.
Yes.
They don't teach it to them. Keep it out of the schools.
Thank you. Anyone else? Before we move on.
Beth Hall. I've lived here for 60 years in the town of Wyndham. First of all, I want to commend the board for doing the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting. I actually checked in on a few schools just to make sure that we were doing that in the town of Wyndham. We'd have a whole new ball of wax if that wasn't happening in my mind, so we'll let that one go, and thank you for doing that. Kenny, thank you so much for talking about all the books that could potentially be mood boosters, and we can all use that at this point. Let me see here. Steve, thank you for your questions about the conglomeration of, I wanted to email the board, but I didn't have confidence that I was going to hear back from anybody. And I didn't want to be redundant in asking the same questions that everybody else asks. My tax dollars are paying for you to sit there and email me back. And if you're emailing me back the same things that you're already emailing everybody else, or maybe not emailing everybody else, is a waste of my tax dollars and time. And time is efficiency. So let's think about like trying to come up with an way to move forward. If this is the start or the beginning of what's to come, because, you know, we all care about what's going on in this town. I've lived here for 60 years. I've had kids in this system. I've been on boards in this system, committees in this system, and I am passionate, extremely passionate about this town. So we need a system where we can all not waste your time with our questions and look at the answers so that we can keep moving forward productively and not being stagnant and staying in the same denomination. So, also, I would like to know why your meetings are not posted on the school calendar, along with the town council meetings, along with the other committee meetings that meet in this office. But I was told it was possibly because they've gone digital, and that, you know, I don't have kids in the school system, but I have 4 grandchildren in the system, and I like to keep up with what's going on with them. So on the school calendar that comes out every year, your agenda is not on there as to when the meetings are. Typically, they're every first and third Wednesday, I guess, but that could be change. But everybody else's board meetings are on that calendar, and I don't see any reason why yours shouldn't be on there as well.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Okay, we will move on. Item number 6 is the Superintendent Chris Howell will present an update to the school reopening plan and the district's masking requirements.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight to talk about where we are as a district and this most important topic of how we are going to be moving forward. And tomorrow night I'll have a chance to share my budget for 22-23, and really the whole theme of that budget is going to be transitioning the district from working in a pandemic to being an endemic situation, and how do we support students as we slowly move out of what has been the last 2 years for all of us and the decisions that we've made in order to be able to keep kids in school. I realize it's been a long year so far. It's only March 1st, and it's been a tough year so far. And it feels like over the last, I would say, 6 weeks or so, things are accelerating as numbers get a little bit better and as we start to see changes not only in the state of Maine but across the country. So tonight I've prepared a few slides, prepared a few talking points. There'll be an opportunity for the public to talk a little bit as well and for the board to ask questions. And then tomorrow night, the board will have the opportunity to kind of weigh in what will be the off-ramp for our school safety plan and what will be the off-ramp for masking in schools. So tonight's a good opportunity to ask questions and for you to be able to share some of your ideas and to really get an understanding of where you are as a board. I went back to the presentation I did middle of August to the community and had a chance to kind of walk through slides and looking at what were our overarching planning themes and thoughts when we started out this school year back in August. And those have been a theme that have run through. They've been a theme that have run through questions. They've also been a theme as we've worked through all the different SOPs that have come down from Maine Department of Education and from the Maine CDC as we've worked in schools and to work to keep kids in school. So protect the health and safety of all members of our school community. Return all students to in-person instruction for a full 5 days a week. And it's hard to believe that we were having that discussion back in August of transitioning from, at that point, a 2-3 rotating to full 5 days per week. We set that overarching planning theme of reducing the number of students and staff members who need to be excluded from school due to quarantine. I know that's been a discussion in multiple emails that I've received, multiple emails the board's received, and also through questions that we've just received through casual conversations, which is why do we have to follow, why are we following the quarantine rules? And we've had all sorts of discussions of Maine CDC being the authority in the state of Maine for determining quarantining rules and things that the district needs to follow. And then that last bullet, maximizing the number of instructional minutes during the school year. And we've been on a roller coaster this year when it comes to COVID and when it comes to how it's impacted the district. And as compared to many larger schools, I think we've done a great job of keeping kids in school for the longest amount of time possible. I know especially towards the beginning of the school year and even as we hit the Omicron, again, roller coaster is probably the best term for it, spike that happened in late December going into January. Other than that week that we had to close Wyndham High School, we were able to keep schools open. And that was no small task by all of our teachers and support staff and administrators helping to keep us running. So this is what we look like to date. I didn't send out an update to the community, but you've noticed that over the last couple of weeks that our cases have been dropping, and this reflects the cases that we saw over the past vacation week that were reported to our school nurses yesterday and today, so trying to capture. So we've been kind of slowly moving down, and if you look for that week that we ran, it was about 9 cases that we saw district-wide. Something interesting that I saw running through the data, and Pete, I think you pointed this out to me at one point, we're running roughly this year about 25% of our population in each of the schools actually having COVID this year, having a documented case, testing positive. And for many, many of these cases, the 982, I just want you to think of as you go through the year, this was a point of contact between one of our school nurses, one of our teachers, one of our support staff, in making contact with families and helping them support through those situations. It also represents 982 points of contacts for whether it be a letter or a summary or something else that has happened. But one thing that we have seen, which has been seen all across the state of Maine and also starting to see across the country, is cases are starting to drop, and they're starting to drop quickly. I've been keeping this going all year long, which is a weekly case summary of where we are as a district. And you can see these are weekly case rates for the week ending. We started out with a little bit of peak after the start of school. There was a little Halloween peak, a little post-Thanksgiving peak, and then we ran into Omicron right after Christmas break and then heading into the middle of January, which was a huge spike for us. And then as we've come off that spike, if you'll notice over the last few weeks or so, we've been starting to drop, and the numbers have been starting to drop. The other thing that I think we've all been cognizant of as we've been reading is that it seems that with each of the new variants that are coming along, that some of the virulence seems to be dropping as well. We're also starting to see the impact of a highly vaccinated rate, or a highly vaccinated cohort within our population, but we're starting to see case numbers decline. And the chart really kind of clearly captures where we've been. I also wanted to throw this piece in here, which is vaccination rates. And these are from Maine CDC. I didn't give a source for them. The left-hand one represents districts across the state and where they fall as far as number of students vaccinated. And RSU 14 falls into roughly 80 to 84% of students who have received 2 doses of vaccination. I put RSU 14 staff 90% plus. The state, when it stopped reporting in October, was giving us individual district numbers. Individual buildings numbers, wasn't giving us the pure district ones. And our district range anywhere, someone for a neighborhood of 96% in some buildings to right around 82, 83% in some support services and other things. But our numbers varied roughly 90%. If you take the communities that we're operating in, according to Maine CDC, 79% of individuals in Raymond have received their 2 doses, 81% in Wyndham. Cumberland County's 84%. We live in the most vaccinated county in the state of Maine. with a highly vaccinated population. If you go just east of us to Falmouth, Yarmouth, Freeport, those numbers even jump as high to 95%. I think I saw for Cumberland today, 99% of the population's actually been vaccinated in the town of Cumberland. But as we've gone through from the beginning of the year to now, because one of the concerns that I brought up when we started the year and talking about masking is that many of our students at the time were not eligible for vaccination. They had not had that opportunity. At this point, I truly believe that everyone who wants to be vaccinated has chosen to be vaccinated. I know that there's some other younger populations where some things are being worked through, the birth to 5 population, and then there's some new data on what's happening for 6 through 11 as far as how long the vaccine's lasting. But overall vaccination rates have gone high, and I think the students that have wanted to do that we've reached that point where students who want to do it, staff who want to do it, that they've taken advantage of that opportunity. I also wanted to point this out because I don't know how many community updates that I have sent over the course of the past 2 years. I think the first letter that I sent to the community regarding COVID was just after a board meeting, and it would have been early March of, 2019, where I sent out to the community that, yes, we have a pandemic plan, which we did have a pandemic plan. It was left over from the swine flu days when that was done. And we really started to, Christine and I, look at the plan and started to pull some of those pieces out, and then things started to accelerate. Maine Department of Education maintains all of the SOPs on their website. It's a continuous update that is there. Every single time that an SOP has changed, it's resulted in a community communication. It's resulted in staff, students, parents, families, community members making adjustments to, here's how we're going to approach quarantine. Here's how we're going to approach close contacts. And if you think about what we've been over time, we've gone from 6 foot of spacing with masks down to 3 foot of spacing with masks. We've gone from masks being required outdoors to no masking required outdoors, whether that be for this year athletic events or for playgrounds or for other things. We've gone from 14 days of quarantine down to 10 days of quarantine, down to 5 days of quarantine with 5 days of masking. There's been different operational pieces that have changed. In addition, in some of the most recent SOP, we've also observed not having to contact trace. So I think it was like 80, I don't know how many days in a row. I think I was sending a community letter almost every single night, sharing what the cases were and where we were at. But we've gone through these SOP changes, and I think you've also started to see in the SOP changes that we're beginning to learn as a community, how do we continue to coexist with the virus? How do we best manage the virus so that we keep kids in school? And also starting to see the changing nature of what's happening in the community and what's happening with virulence and spread. And really what, and this is quoting me, so it's not anyone important, but we're nearing the end of needing to require masks in schools. We are reaching that point. And really, one of the things that I think the board's going to need to wrestle with for a question tonight is, it's not a matter of if masks will no longer be required this year. It's a matter of when is the best time to actually pull them away and to get.
Now.
You voted out.
Please let him finish, folks. Thank you.
It's going to be when is going to be the absolute best time in order to be able to do that. And I think as you have your conversation tonight, and I've got some more things that I'm going to share with you, but as you have this conversation tonight, looking at what is it that you're going to need for information, what is it that you're looking at for metrics, what is the timeline, because it's no longer a question of finishing out the year with masks. I think we'll see some updates coming very, very soon as well from other places. But What is that timeline? What is that off-ramp? Over the past few weeks, we've had some recent changes to the CDC SOP. And what's interesting is I think whoever does this, they choose the Friday at the end of a vacation week for all their notifications, so that we can scramble over that weekend to try to get some information out. But December 29th, some big changes that happened. Changed the definition of an outbreak in school. If you remember, for quite a while, we were operating under 3 or more cases in a school over 14 days was considered to be an outbreak. And that created a whole different sense of requirements for close contact rules and for what needed to happen in classrooms. So that changed to 15% of your population. Incidentally, for years, school nurses have been working under a model with looking at percent of students out in a population for number 6, that 15%. In fact, I remember February prior to the pandemic, and I think SAD 6 closed a school for a day because of flu. They'd gone over 15%. Wyndham Middle School had a flu that ran through for a period of time. We were closing that. So I think individuals are used to that. I think what we're seeing now is the CDC removing back to that point. Changing outdoor close contacts not existing. Okay, it was a big change that was there. And then we saw some big changes with the Uscdc isolation and quarantine guidance. We went from 10 days down to 5 days. So after 5 days, if someone is asymptomatic, that they were allowed to come to school and they could come to school masked. Was a big change that happened for them. Not more than 2 weeks later, schools could pause contact tracing if they were universally masked. Another big change, hundreds of hours spent in the RSU with individuals contact tracing. That piece went away on January 11th. And February 16th, which happened just roughly 2 weeks ago, updated a note which provided the opportunity for schools to forego contact tracing for if you were a masked school or if you were an unmasked school. And the term that they used in there was contact tracing if feasible. Didn't completely eliminate it, but if it was feasible, you could do it. If it wasn't feasible, you weren't required to do it. So we saw some changes. I think what we're starting to see with CDC is we're starting to see some movement as far as where is it that we're going to land this thing, and starting to remove some of the requirements that were being placed on districts. And then this came along February 25th with a national map showing areas of the country that were in green, that there wasn't a reason to mask. Areas of country in yellow, that you should be cautious for some categories of individuals to mask. And then in orange, they were showing the recommendation that individuals should mask. Personally, I saw this map and I was a little dismayed and disappointed, and trying to understand how that you could go from York County, Maine to the other side of DC with all of that being green, and where we are in the state of Maine with this high area of high risk with a band of yellow running through. I know I've read some articles recently on some backlog of data, of information, but trying to understand. The other thing that I wonder about within this is that being a small rural state and the amount of health care and large hospitals that we have access to, is it actually impacting what our metrics are and where we're at? I know this question has been posed to Augusta as far as why is Maine's data so different? I think the other thing that's done, though, is it's also forced some questions for Maine, because this week Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and I'm just trying to think of the other plan that I read. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire. New Hampshire announced some changes. Maine was the only state, New England state, who hadn't announced what was going to be happening moving forward. Board members, I sent you this presentation tonight, or not tonight, last night. I did receive notification this afternoon that the state of Maine will be producing their plan sometime tomorrow within the 24-hour period, and probably everyone else who gets a Press Herald alert got the same alert. So we know that there's some questions currently with our data, and as we work through the data, and I've also heard Thursday there'll be a data refresh that will represent. But as you look across the country, I think that what I had heard for a number was roughly 74% of the population fell in a spot where masks weren't being recommended. And so looking at that, comparing it to rural Maine, was a little difficult to understand. The metric board, I sent you the metric. For those of you who haven't looked at the metric, looks at new COVID admissions per 100,000, proportion of staff and patient beds occupied if you're fewer than 200 new cases per 100,000, and there's a whole other set of metric pieces. The data is showing that Maine is close, and the data is also showing, possibly this week, that we're going to be following in that low to medium category. I don't have any insider information on that. I don't, but we have to be close. It's just hard to believe that given everything that we've been up against and what we've seen for case numbers dropping, I never thought I'd be reading articles on wastewater virus load, but even that is showing that we are dropping tremendously. So I know, board, one of the things that you're interested in, and I know one of the things you're going to hear in comment tonight, is right now we have the SOP, which we are bound by law to follow. And we have that, and it's kind of hitting up against what's happening with CDC recommendations. Or let me just say, the flexibility that's provided within the SOP is a little different than flexibility now, which is being offered by the CDC recommendation. So I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of run through a table here of where some of those things are. So first of all, with contact tracing, which has been a big element of what we've talked about this year. If you have universal masking, if you have optional masking, contact tracing is not required. So going back to that original idea of how do we make sure that we keep kids in school, contact tracing was a big element of that. I'm just thinking back to last year where under the SOP we were quarantining tens, if, in some cases 100 students for a case, and so being able to move that. Quarantine length. The SOP and what happens with quarantine length does not change whether or not you are a universally masked school or whether you're an optionally masked school. Individuals who test positive still need to quarantine for their 5 days, and they're still required to do 5 days of masking if they want to return. They're free to return on day 10, but if they want to return after day 5, they're still required to mask regardless of what happens. Transportation. This was a bit of a surprise that came out in the guidance that we received on the 25th. If you remember correctly, that March 18th was a kind of a big date, because on March 18th was when the federal requirement to wear masks on airplanes, public transportation, that was due to sunset unless it was renewed by the Biden administration. In the most recent guidance, flexibility was given to public schools for masking recommendations on buses. So starts to put away the choice going from being required under an SOP or being required under federal transportation law to where, as a board, do you want to fall, and where is it that you want to see for masking that's happening on our transportation. So again, under a universal masking scenario, masks required on school transportation, optional masking, masks required or recommended, masks recommended when the district's at a high level. Other things, outdoor activities, regardless of what decision that you put forward, outdoor activities will not require a mask. That piece does not happen. Lunches, masking not required in either scenario. For athletics, and I know someone brought this up in public comment tonight, masks required during practice and a universal masking. If the board decides to move into an optional masking, it will, depending upon what venue that you're at, what tournament that you're in, what other place that you're traveling to. SMAA schools have been pretty consistent that if a school has optional masking and they go to a school that requires masking, that they follow the guidelines of the school that they're visiting. And so for athletics, max optional during practice if you were an optional school, but they would require it at events that would be held at a universally masked school or an event. ESSER 3 funds. I know this has come up in several conversations. Whether you have masks or not, ESSER 3 funds are still eligible. The district is still eligible for them. Whether or not you have universal masking is not a requirement attached to that. So for your ESSER 3 funds, if you're thinking that it may make a difference when you vote, you'll still have access whether you're masked or not. So something to consider as you think about where we're going with this. So I think all of you are thinking now, so what is he thinking? Where am I at? And I have been in obviously multiple meetings with individuals, and yes, I think people can criticize me for taking a more conservative approach. However, the conservative approach has been following the laws and the policies that we're mandated to follow as a district. Those laws and policies now are starting to open up. Also, as we've been moving through this process, case rates have dropped. Access to health care and other things have increased. We're seeing our numbers in general. I also think that we are so close to having the opportunity through not only a recommendation by the board, but having a recommendation by the CDC to say that it's okay to move away from masks in schools. And so my initial thing for the board to think about, and I know this is going to create some great conversation, but to move to a mask optional model starting next week. Part of my thoughts in this, number one, all individuals are recommended to wear a mask. And just listening through some of the safety meetings that I've been through, not only in the district level, the state level, whether you agree or not, masks throughout the pandemic have actually proven to be the most effective tool across everything.
Please. Thank you.
You wanted your few minutes back.
Yeah, really. I said, please stop.
So we can carry on. Thank you.
Moving it to next week, we need to have some communication to families and stakeholders. Also gives us an opportunity to reach out to everyone within the RSU to let them know the impact that. I think it's and also important for us to let people know that the support the school can provide around masking, and I've got a couple Q&A things there that I'll answer with that. And then also some time to review state requirements and recommendations. Again, on the news feed today, it was reported that Governor Mills is going to send something out tomorrow. I don't know what that is. I don't think it's going to be an SOP that's going to put us into a spot where we're quarantining kids and required to do that. I'm hesitant, though, to move forward with anything that's going to require us to go back to quarantining students or anything that's going to require us to quarantining beyond positive cases, but anything that's going to keep kids out of school. So some frequently asked questions that may come up, and I know we'll have an opportunity to hear in a few minutes what people are thinking, but what conditions might require the district to mask again? If we see numbers increase, if we see outbreaks in schools or classroom where we're getting into those high percentages, there may be a period of time where we need to return to masking. Do students need to mask after quarantine? Yes. Yeah, when a student is out for COVID, we still follow the SOP. They still would be required to mask for days 6 through 10. That's an element of the SOP that allows them to come back after day 5. That does not change if you're mask optional or if you're a mask required district. Under mask optional, do students need a mask on buses? Most recent guidance gives districts the flexibility to determine that. So you're the decision-making authority on that. Will the district provide mask-only classrooms? And no, we do not have the capability of doing that. We don't have the capability of changing all the different class rosters now to juggle kids for the last 3 months of school. Not something that we have the ability to offer. Will the district have to return to contact tracing and quarantines if mask optional? And no. The most recent SOP gives some flexibility to districts to do that, to forego contact tracing and quarantining close contacts. Again, do students who test positive have to quarantine? That doesn't change. That's a requirement of the SOP. If you are positive for COVID, you still need to quarantine. Can masks be made available to students and staff request them? Yes, we've ordered masks. We have masks on hand. We will provide them for those individuals who still want to have them. And the other thing I want to point out to this is that part of why we need a little bit of time is that if an individual wants to wear a mask to school, that should be respected. And there should not be an issue with a student, whether it be or a staff member, with bullying, teasing, anything that goes along with that with wearing a mask. That is a choice, and that choice should be respected if they so choose in our mask optional model. Will staff need to monitor masking? And we cannot expect our staff to be the mask police or to be the ones responsible for making sure that kids are wearing masks at schools. If that's a wish of a family, I would ask that the family have the conversation with their student to say, while you're at school, you're doing this. We just cannot ask our staff to be the person who's in the middle of that. And what happens, and this is a possibility, what happens if we have a staff shortage due to illness, and this is a reality of making this decision, in the event of an additional absences, the district may need to implement additional remote days. It's a possibility. If we don't have the ability to staff, it may be something that we need to move towards. So I know the board, I think that's my last slide, I know the board has a lot to think about, and I know that there's going to be some questions. And I know that we will have some additional guidance tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we will be taking public comment on this topic. I do realize that there may be some questions that folks have, and given the fact that we are making our decision tomorrow evening, we will be allowing Mr. Howell to answer questions. We do still want to hold to the 3-minute time limit, just given, again, just out of respect of everyone's time. However, it'll be a little funky, so bear with us, please. Please be patient, because we want to give you your 3 minutes, but we don't want the answer to be part of the 3 minutes. So again, it's a little funky, it's a little technical. My timekeeper got a little nervous when I told him that that's what the rule was going to be tonight. But so please, I just ask you, please be patient with us on that. I do just want to let people know, once public comment has closed, once everyone who would like to speak has spoken, the board will then deliberate, but there will not be an opportunity for the public to comment again. This is merely a process. We always do it this way. However, I know there are lots of people in the audience that have likely never been to a board meeting. So if you hear us talk and then you want to get up, it can feel, I don't want anyone to feel like we are shutting you down, because we don't want to hear you. It's just the way that our process has been and will continue to move forward. So at this time, we will take public comment.
Hi, I'm Kristen Day again. I want to thank you, Kate. You are doing such a nice job.
Thank you.
Really. Oh crap! I used my time. I'm actually really excited because for the first time, I think that we're gonna be moving forward in a positive way. Chris mentioned something about backlogged cases in the Portland Press Herald, they reported yesterday, data being collected in Maine from wastewater testing continues to show a dramatic decline in coronavirus levels. Wastewater testing gives real-time accurate data, scientists say. It's not subject to issues that arise in counting cases such as proliferation of at-home tests, and in Maine's case, a substantial backlog that is skewing results. In Westbrook, virus levels found in the poop have gone down more than 98% since early January. And in Portland, it's declined 97%. Proof is in the poop. So the backlog at one point had reached nearly 60,000 cases. And as Maine worked through it, case counts often included illnesses that occurred weeks or even months beforehand. So that could be happening now. So rather than restate my position that masks should always have been optional, today I want to defer to the experts for real-time testimony. Dr. Leanna Wen, a CNN medical analyst throughout the pandemic, recently changed her stance on COVID restrictions, including masking. She tweeted February 7th, "In the coming days, we will see many governors and local leaders lift mask mandates. This is the right step and marks a needed shift from government-imposed requirement to individual decision. It helps to preserve public health authority for when it's needed again." She added, "The government can't keep on telling our citizens that it's a 5-alarm fire all the time." On CNN February 8th, 1 week before the SOP was out, making contact tracing optional, Dr. Wen stated on CNN, "There was and is a time and place for pandemic restrictions. When they were put in, it was always with the understanding that they would be removed as soon as we can. And in this case, circumstances have changed. Case counts are declining. Also, the science has changed. We know that vaccines protect very well against Omicron, which is the dominant variant. Everyone 5 and older have widespread access to vaccines. And we also know that one-way masking, the idea that even if the other people around you are not wearing masks, if you wear a high-quality mask, that also protects you, the wearer, too. And so in this case, responsibility should shift from a government mandate imposed from the state or the local district on the school to an individual responsibility by the family who can still decide that their child can wear a mask if needed." She continued, "I don't think we should be looking at case counts at all at this point, especially when we're dealing with a milder variant. If our ICUs and hospitals in that particular region are not overwhelmed, then we should be able to relax all restrictions. The first restriction that should be removed is the restriction on children."
Your time is up. Thank you. I gave you a few seconds back.
Hello, my name is Eric Colby. I know some of you guys, and I know you guys do care. I know that you would not want to be in this situation. You didn't choose it. You don't want it. And I do know that our superintendent goes to great lengths to do the research and to look at try to make the best decision that he can. And you're never going to please everybody, are we? We knew that a long time ago, but no matter what decision we make, you're going to have people on one side or the other. So I thank you for your work during this tough time. I really do. I do want to say that on behalf of my son, is why I'm here, because he wouldn't come and face you, but he's done. He's done. And just for his mental health, I'm asking if you see it in the stats that you're looking at carefully, then I would ask. And I do want to say one side note, and I'll kick myself out, but on that CRT, I just learned that word. But my son, if you ask him, if you get a chance, if you want to ask him, he feels his school, as a whole, not everybody, but school as a whole, really dislikes, and they actually hate him because of his race, his heritage, his religion. He actually feels that way, and he said that to me. He feels that way from at the time that he spent in school. Not all of his teachers, not everybody, but as a whole. And I will allow you guys, anybody who wants to ask him directly, that's not coming from me, that's coming from him. Thank you guys for your hard work, really appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Downs, and I have a kindergartner at the Wyndham Primary School, and I am a Wyndham resident. And prior to this meeting, I emailed you all a letter that we had gathered signatures for, indicating that we, as a community, are requesting that we undate the mask mandate effective immediately for various different reasons, many of which are supported by Chris's report, and that everything is declining and dropping. So that's where our thoughts are, and that's what we're hoping for. So this letter was emailed to everyone. I have a 6-year-old who has vision problems, and we've had to compromise her vision as a result of the mask wearing because she's 6. She can't deal with the mask and the glasses on for a full day. So we've been compliant with the request thus far, but I think as a parent, I shouldn't have to have her, her vision be compromised because of wearing a mask that doesn't help anything or benefit her whatsoever. And I would politely request that Jenny Butler resigns as well. Thank you.
All right, I'm not prepared to speak. I just want to say, who votes on, does everybody have a vote on whether the mask remains or thing?
And just for the record, can you just please state your name and the
Mike
town?
Tavanian.
Yeah,
My
thank
son
you.
Xander.
Yeah, Xander.
Statistics, we all know, we watch TV, we love lives, we watch football games, we all know it's coming to an end. Do we have to be followers and wait? We've already, I appreciate the cautious, but at this point, it's like you said, it sounds like to you, your presentation says the mask is going to go. So why wait? The kids have been wearing them for so long now. Give them their lives back, their personality, their smiles, so they can recognize who they are. So whoever's voting, please don't wait a week or a month or 2 months. Just end it now. You know what I mean? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
You want to go? Okay. My name is Scott Maddox, and I have 2 children who grew up in the Windham School District, and I'm a Windham resident. And I am the author of the letter that you received in your email today. And I just want to speak briefly. The first thing I'd like to say is I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. Thank you very much for your service. As this gentleman said earlier, this is a very difficult topic. And I'm not politically inclined. I've never been to a school board meeting. I've never been to any board meeting whatsoever. And I can appreciate the difficult position you're in. But I'd like to finish my likely minute and a half now with just 2 brief points. The mask wearing, social distancing, closing of non-priority businesses have been a social experiment, non-pharmaceutical interventions to prevent the spread or slow the spread. And of everything I've heard tonight, very good speech tonight, by the way, I'm going to disagree with you on one point, sir, is that we do not have a scientifically valid, peer-reviewed study that can tell us mask wearing is an effective way to reduce the spread. So wearing masks is really our best guess that this is a beneficial thing for our children. Okay? But what we do know is that many children are affected negatively by it. We do know that there is problems with language development. We do know there's problems with social development. We do know that there are psychological problems that can be developed. And we don't know what the long-term event will be of forced mask wearing. So while I appreciate all of your comments, all of the information here and the difficult decision that you have, I respectfully ask you to end these mask mandates now, because it has reached a point, as evidenced by the superintendent's own data tonight, that the COVID transmission and spread has dropped so much that we now must make a balancing test, and forced mask wearing is more detrimental than optional. Thank you.
Barbara Bagshaw, Wyndham. I'm just coming up to finish Kristen's comments. What Dr. Wen from CNN medical analyst said. She said, continued, I don't think we should be looking at case counts at all at this point, especially when we are dealing with a milder variant. If our ICUs and hospitals in that particular region are not overwhelmed, then we should be able to relax all restrictions. The first restriction that should be removed is the restriction on children, because while for adults you could say, what's the harm of adults masking when they go to the grocery store? There actually is harm. We should be discussing of children. There actually is harm we should be discussing of children continuing to mask. We may want to bring masks back, but we also have to be intellectually honest and say that masking has had a cost. So the risk/benefit calculation has really changed. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Samantha Turner. I'm a resident in Windham, a Windham alumni. I've always been grateful of the wonderful education that I've gotten at Windham, and I've had many of these teachers actually throughout my school career. I'm also a dental hygienist, a healthcare professional. I've been treating patients since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And initially it was terrifying, honestly, initially to go in and to treat a patient and to sit 16 inches from their mouth and their nose and to tell them to take off their masks and work in a notoriously aerosolized environment. But I'm a big believer that knowledge is power and kind of pushed through from that. But my most qualifying aspect to speak is I'm a mother of 2 boys that attend Windham schools. I've logged hundreds of volunteer hours in the primary school as well. My younger son started his education in September 2019, and his entrance to kindergarten was one of the biggest challenges I've ever faced in my lifetime. Asher started school with what staff and teachers thought was a horrible case of separation anxiety. He had to be pulled from us in the morning sobbing. He would attempt to leave the classroom. He would open moving car doors to get out. He even chased my car down the road one day, and thankfully his teacher was a marathon runner, so we were good there. But his whole life changed. He switched from a happy-go-lucky kid who was smiling to constant anxiety and panic attacks. It's no exaggeration, he didn't sleep for 3 months. After the first week of Asher struggling, we began working with pediatrician, therapist, and psychiatrist. He was diagnosed with OCD, and it stemmed from his fear of germs. He wanted no part of the school bathrooms. He didn't want to eat anything that was not made from home. He didn't want to sit on the ground, touch pencils, crayons that peers had used. Everything was his fear of germs. So my husband and I worked with his teachers, his medical specialists, and basically the goals of his therapy for OCD was to push him through and see that you're okay. So we'd always invalidate his fears. Do it, you're not going to die, you're okay, keep going. And we did get him through it. So between my mother, my husband, and myself, we all went to school full-time with Asher for the first 6 months. And we pulled back every 15 minutes and let him stay there by himself. And basically, when the pandemic hit, Asher had been going to school for 2 weeks by himself. And then basically the whole world shut down because of germs, which was really hard. He basically had his fears validated. It felt to us a little bit like we were telling him that that monster under your bed was actually real. Everybody's afraid, just stay in your house. Germs are, a force to be reckoned with. So for Asher's sake, we pushed through and told him he was okay, which I firmly believe. So with masking in kids, for Asher, it's every day. He asks me, why do I have to wear this? And I don't have a good excuse to tell him because his OCD struggle is going to be far of greater risk. Children have 1,000-fold reduction than the elderly.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Thank you.
Your time is up. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak before? Sure, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ken Anderson. I'm a resident of Windham. I have 2 children in the Windham schools. And I just wanted to touch a little bit more on, I think, the temperature of the room. And our culture right now is at a heightened state of fear because not just the masking, but the indoctrination along with the masking of many facets of our society. We have problems with, and I think I speak for most people here, with anti-American values that are trying to be pushed on our children in very, very crafty ways. But most of us also know that's how the enemy strikes. So we're here to stand strong against that. Because beyond the masking, when they're removed, this is still going to be an issue, and we know it. So we are asking you with an endearing heart and mind to take careful study of what's going on in our children's schools. They are promoting pornography too, at many different little levels. And that is a very big problem when we're at home trying to raise our kids against this type of mentality. But it's literally being taught in our school systems. They're actually teaching this.
And I do just want to keep you on the topic of masking for right now, please.
This is one and the same.
Okay.
Because it's oppression. We all know with the critical race theory, the oppressor and the oppressor, the Marxists, the communists, all that's going on too. We're all being pushed by this and just twisted. And they're taking it all as a wax nose and they're moving it around for their own ideologies. And it's happening at a high level. People that are otherwise very intelligent are being warped by this kind of thing. And it's a big problem. So we're here to tell anybody that sides with the enemy, we're standing up against it. We're Americans. We're not backing down. Thank you.
Do you mind if I just have another minute or so?
Of course. No, Ashley,
All right.
go ahead.
So I do want to comment on what you had said about bullying for wearing a mask. I do have to say, for the past 2 years, anti-maskers have been absolutely ridiculed and tormented for not going with these CDC guidelines or whatever has been recommended or forced upon us. So the bullying has been going on for 2 years on the anti-maskers, not the maskers. As far as I'm concerned, everybody has an option and they should have the freedom to decide whether they want to play it safe or they want to live their lives. I have no problem with either one. I just want the choice. And I have to say, over 2 years, we've been wearing masks for safety reasons. 90% of you guys are not wearing your masks correctly. So with the kids going to school, they're absolutely not wearing them properly. So why haven't we come up with something better? Or why haven't we asked for these CDC or guidelines or the professionals to be coming to the school and offering proper masks, N95s, or whatever else it takes, and then properly teaching these kids how to do it. Whether it's remote learning and they can watch on a computer how to properly wear their mask, there's ways to do this, and it doesn't have to be during the classroom period. But why has it taken so long to be safer for our kids? These handmade masks that my kid's grandmother has knitted for them is an absolute joke. And I see several other masks that are handmade and they have cool designs on them. I'm not looking at just you, but there's a couple of them in here that are handmade or made from Joann fabrics, okay? So I just really want you guys to take that into consideration. This is a joke. This is how the kids are wearing their masks. And no one's saying anything to the students that are wearing it like this. They're commenting on this and kicking my kids out of class and sending them home. This is not right. And if you guys are really trying to make a point and be safer for our kids, this is not the way to do it. All right? Sorry for getting upset and passionate about this, but I'm done. 2 years is long enough. So.
Just quickly, I don't know what was involved with the PPP monies for the ventilation systems. I don't know. We don't have a spreadsheet like to know where the budget process was with all the money and where that came into the system here in Windham and the expenditures that went to try to protect everybody in the school system. I mean, did we actually put ventilations?
On the website.
It's on the website. So we have then got ventilation systems all in process. Well, I guess maybe it's time to put it to use and see, without the masking, if it's working.
Hello again, I'm Stephen Napolitano. If you're a fireman entering a house and there are people inside, would you just tell them to put a mask on, they're all set? My guess would be probably not. It's not going to save them. I respectfully, on the presentation, I don't see some statistics such as false positives on the test, because the tests are the problem. Everything on what we're seeing is the testing. There's problems with the testing. You can't tell if it's a cold, the flu, or COVID. And we're going to see those tests change, but that's a problem. So we're putting all of it in on that, and where's the margin of error? We can't just cherry pick statistics, because the CDC said cloth masks don't even work. I haven't even heard anybody say that. They don't work. On the box, when this whole thing started, on the box, when you buy the masks, it says right on there that it won't prevent contracting a virus. Is that just not part of it? It should be. So when it comes to, is this really about safety? You see in the Wyndham Eagle, and they do a great job, by the way, and I love seeing the athletes that are there every week, and you look, and you can even zoom in on the pictures online, and you can see people in the crowd. So many people not wearing the masks, and you know what? They shouldn't have to if they don't want to. We have faculty, we have school administration that don't have to wear a mask during the day, certain times of the day, and I think that's great, because they shouldn't have to. But yet the students can't even take a mask break when they're sitting on their desks that are socially distanced, but we could go to a restaurant and take our masks off during that time. We've had school administration that's been up on stage with 6 people with laying the hands on, no mask, in September, right after voting for this, and I'm told, well, it's okay, everybody's vaccinated. Okay, so it's not okay. It's not okay to set an example for the kids when you're saying that this is about safety. So I'm questioning, is this really about safety? So when I see up there, we don't see all the details of the SOP, that will come out. I am seeing that there's going to be discrimination against unvaccinated children. And we're really done with this, guys. It's over. All right, this is all done. Let the kids live again. Let them have the option to wear the mask or not wear the mask. In 1940s Germany, people kept saying, I am just following orders. I am just doing my job. When you know something is so wrong, just doing your job is not okay. Children are the least at risk. Only a misinformed, full of fear, or just a cowardly human being would target our children who offer virtually no risk of dying from this virus. We need to end this game now. Make masks optional. Thank you.
Again, Dr. Robin Frost from Wyndham. My child in my particular situation is more likely to have an adverse effect from masks than she is to have any adverse effects from contracting COVID. She has an underlying autoimmune disorder that doesn't allow her body to deliver oxygen because she doesn't produce a hormone that allows her to do that. Yet she suffers through every single day. I have to give her oxygen at least 2 or 3 times a day. I have to add in additional medication. And it has to be an individual parent's right to know their individual child and make this decision. And no, that was a great presentation, Mr. Howell, but I really think you should be really careful about formulating stats and your opinion in this presentation, because you're not a scientist, and I know you know that, but you're not looking at the different variables as you're presenting this information. This is not factual information. Some of this is based on your opinion, and I think only thing that should be presented is factual information, not based on what your interpretation is, because that's unfair to everybody else. I'm not opposed to having people wear masks if they want to, because that's the parent or guardian's choice. But I am opposed to having to constantly make sure that my child stays well over these months and months and months to make sure that she's not developing secondary GI infection. She's not developing secondary bacterial infection, strep twice. She's not developing rashes on her face or oral lesions in her mouth, that she's not getting enough oxygen perfusion. And it's not just my daughter, it's the other kids that are suffering social, psychological, all these other effects that we're seeing. It's not your choice. And it should not be your choice to present this, and it should not be your choice to vote on this. This should be the parents' choice. And I'm telling you that at this point in time, it's really too late. So your decision is that this needs to end. And if it does not end, then you're going to have to provide some type of education for our students that are not going to do this anymore. And I don't know how you're going to do that. So if you're not going to allow them in our school system, then you're going to have to start thinking about doing that presentation. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to be real, because it's not fun having to try to salvage your child every single day because she has an individual problem, and there are many kids that do. And there are many kids that want a mask that have individual problems that they choose the mask, and that's their choice. But that should be between the parent, guardian, and their physician. So I can't have my child live in a bubble. She has to develop her immune system. But that may not be the case for somebody else. And I'm not making that decision for them. So you absolutely are going to have this vote. But as far as I'm concerned, this vote shouldn't be happening. This should be done. And this shouldn't even be discussion. There shouldn't be a presentation. And that should be that. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hi, that's my mom. I'm not prepared to come up here tonight. I just obviously walked in through half of it, but I just wanted to say that I'm just really getting tired of it. I'm just not. I just go to school, and my teachers even say, they're like, recently they've been like, just one more week, guys. We're almost there, and I'm like, why can't we do it today? There's so many other people who are, and I just don't understand. And just it's been so long, and like even last year, all of 7th grade, I had to homeschool because of it. And that was really hard, really hard for me to be home and learning. And I also have ADHD, so trying to be in my house, it didn't really work very well for me. So, but that was a decision me and my mom had to make because I had to wear a mask at school, and I think I've gotten more used to it over these 2 years. But in the beginning, I would be in Walmart for 15 minutes, and I would start to pass out because I don't, obviously, like my mom said, the medical thing behind my thyroid issue, but it's began to really take a toll on not only my physical health, as my mom has said, but just not being able to really live school how we used to. And it's just I'm really getting sick of it. So just really appreciate it if you let the parents and the guardians of us and the people who are actually in the school every day decide whether this is the right decision for their children. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There any other public input?
I don't know if I'm allowed up here, but I'm really sick and tired of having to wear a mask in school. I don't get why we have to because of, I don't know about most of you, but you have the choice to wear a mask at Hannaford, Walmart. We don't have the choice, and I will want the choice quicker.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, I knew my kid. So is his dad, I know him. Ken Clark, and I got to say, big sigh of relief. I mean, just to see that this is going to end sooner rather than later. And there's just been a lot of stress And, I mean, I got to say that I think, again, I'm being positive I can, but the way things have gone, when we come up here and get the bell rung, and I emailed questions to this board 3 months ago. I did it twice. I then did a handout for everyone to answer the questions. We don't get them answered. It's hypocrisy, okay? And I think it's important that we get these off now, because there is just constant hypocrisy. When this is in the Wyndham Eagle, with the basketball team playing another team from another school, I don't know if we went through the research to get their account before they came here, but not one kid has a mask on. This has gone on for games and games and games. So how is it okay when this beautiful girl has to have her mask yanked up all day, but we're letting the basketball team interact with another team, sweating, banging into each other, coughing. Not one mask is on the other team. And I guess that's where we get frustrated, because rules for thee, but not for me, or however they go. It's happening. And this is causing the division. So the sooner you guys say, you know what, it is enough. Let's get the masks off as soon as possible. Drew Patton, I went to the school yesterday, dropped some stuff off. He's right here with no mask on. I had to turn around and take a photo. Yes, it's outside. I know the rule just changed. You can explain that to the kids. This is who they're supposed to look up to. Every single kid, and he knew it, there's a sidewalk about 9 feet wide. He's up on 2 feet of it.
Mr. Clark, we do have to remember not to talk directly about personnel in your comments.
Why are they protected and not us? We have to come out in the public. All right, I won't mention the individual's name, but it's really starting to frustrate people. And if you guys don't want to keep getting caught in these situations of hypocrisy, let's drop them now. And what was not mentioned in those studies, I had my physician test myself for natural immunity. He said, do not get vaccinated, it's higher. And vaccine can lessen your immunity, okay? Yet we push the vaccine on these kids like it's the right thing to do. Not all the time. They should get tested by their physician. It's true. And also, people keep thinking the vaccine prevents it. It does not prevent the spread of COVID. As I said in the first meeting I was here, I got vaccinated. I got COVID. People don't seem to believe that, but that's science. And the science is the masks don't work. And there's also science that said these kids are playing basketball, banging off each other all year, and the case count went down. That, to me, is kind of a fact. Don't matter. That's reality. So again, I appreciate where we're going. You got to understand the frustration, the tension we've dealt with, because there is hypocrisy here. And let's just end it. Seriously. Thank you very much.
My name is Jamie McAlpine. I'm a special ed tech and special ed secretary over at the Wyndham Primary School. I am a Wyndham resident, and I am also the president for the Raymond Wyndham ESP Association in the district. Going through and looking at the plan, I was curious. I have heard a number of parents, some of them are here tonight and have been here at multiple meetings, as well as from staff, and was also mentioned tonight about staff not mask policing, which we all very much appreciate because that's a widespread staff concern. But one of the questions that was brought up to me that I was also curious about was around the when staff or students return back after 5 days and they're required to wear a mask. There's been concern from staff members around how that is going to be implemented and enforced without turning staff into becoming mask police and bringing on more conversations and comments that can arise from that. But that was something that was brought up that I would love for the board to be able to discuss and think about. Thank you.
Ready? Thank you.
Rebecca Cole. I teach first grade at Wyndham Primary School. I'm also the president of Sebago East Shore EA and sit on the NEA Board of Directors. I want to thank the folks in the room who have honored my initial request to limit sidebar and, for want of a better word, I'll say heckling. I think that helps everybody feel that they do have a voice in the room without being worried that that's going to happen if they choose to stand up here and say what they need to say. I share many of the concerns that Jamie shared. I wonder about our immunocompromised students and staff. I've heard a couple of calls for masking to end immediately. I'm curious how that would work when we have people who literally cannot be in the building without those protections being in place. Obviously, they would not have time to consult with their physician about any change in policy that might happen tomorrow night if that determination were made immediate. I would also just like to advocate once again, as I did at the Raymond meeting a couple of months ago, for our staff. When I hear things like indoctrination, anti-American, crafty, you're talking about me. You're talking about my colleagues who are in those classrooms with those children, with those students, with those young people. I don't know a single staff member who does not have their students' best interest at heart. And any implication, whether overt or subtle, that anyone is in those classrooms with any intent except to provide the best experience they can for those children is a slap in the face to a group of people who have worked so hard the last 2 years to provide the best experience we can for our kids. So I would just like people to consider that when they stand at this podium and say things that may not be intended as harmful for our staff, but that is the impact. I thank the board's indulgence for my time at the podium this evening. I'm sure that you will hear from me later when I've had some time to process some of the many amazing things I've heard at the microphone tonight, and I hope that my staff, my colleagues, our families know that we hear all of them, we see all of them, and we value all of them as we approach this next phase of what has been a very challenging couple of years. Thank you.
That just hits to the heart because this is my first time here. It feels like it's them against somebody else. You can't let emotions and winning and losing take over our children because it's about the kids right now. And people lose sight about their kids when they get standoffish. That's right. They are saying nasty things, but they don't mean them that way. And maybe you're taking it, I'm not sure who votes, that's why I asked, but it isn't about them against you. It's about the kids. So forget about all that stuff and all the things. Remember, the kids don't need to wear masks anymore. It's not protecting anybody, you know what I'm saying? Take that element of what just happened out of it. I feel so bad, Mrs. Cole, about that. Because you're a great teacher, you know what I mean? But they're not against you, and please don't be against them. They just care for their kids.
Yeah. And I do just want to remind people as we're moving forward, because that was slightly veered off topic, thank you for coming up, but that this is related to the masking topic, so. He gave it earlier.
Hello, I'm Sherry Weeks. I have a current 7th grader, and I have a daughter who has graduated already. I want to say my daughter's experience at the high school was amazing. You get the teachers who look forward to seeing these bright, shiny faces every single day. I have heard from my son's teachers the last couple of years how awful it is that they walk into a room, they don't even know what their students look like. I was speaking with my son's science teacher today, and she was handing out the student IDs that they just got, and she was floored at what some of these children actually look like because they don't get to see this. I recall from being a substitute teacher, the personal time I got to spend with children. They get to know you. They count on you come in. You may be the only friendly face they get to see, but I'm looking right now, I see 3 people who, if they're smiling,
I'm going to know that they are genuinely happy to see my face, or maybe someone's smirking at me. I don't know what your eyes are going to tell me. All I know is there's kids out there who depend on that teacher to know they don't look like they did yesterday. Something's going on with them. I think maybe I should talk to them. If you can't see their smile or lack thereof, how many children aren't eating at home, aren't having that home life? School's the only normal thing they have going for them, and we're now stripping that. We are stripping our children of their rights because us adults want to tell them what to do. It's not fair. I feel you want to wear a mask? Wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask? Don't wear a mask. That is why we have rights. It's freedom. It's not freedom to do what I'm told. It's freedom to do what I feel is right. Freedom of rights. And I do want to say those people who, yes, are immunocompromised need to wear a mask. If your masks work, why do I gotta wear mine? So if you need to wear one because it protects you, me wearing mine shouldn't make a difference to you. So I just don't see, like, if you can't be in a room with someone who isn't wearing a mask, wear your mask.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Sorry, this is like 2 seconds, but if you have any students that you would like to have proper mask usage, I'd be more than happy to come in, and I do mean that.
You're supposed to be addressing that.
Okay, well, sorry. I'd be more than happy to take time and show these kids how to wear them properly. Like I said, it's an option.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else that we have not heard from? Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jenna Duffy, and I have 2 kids in the school system. I almost didn't come tonight, but then I took the advice from several teachers in our school system that said, you just can't vent on social media. You can't complain unless you go and speak and stand up. So here I am, taking the advice from several teachers in our district. I'm also here tonight for my kids and to ask for them, once again, that these masks be removed from our school system right immediately. It makes zero sense as to why we are still enforcing these masks. Some argue it's because it will keep our kids safe. I argue it does not. They don't wear them correctly. As much as we want to protect our kids 24/7, we can't. If a kid is going to get sick, they're going to get sick regardless of a mask. I've said this before. My daughter has 2 rare diseases that affect her brain and major organs. She also suffers from severe anxiety ever since this pandemic. I'm not going to hold her back from playing sports, playing with friends, or going out just because the media is putting fear into our lives. I've not held her back from anything she wants to do without a mask. COVID is not going anywhere. There's always going to be a new variant. That's a virus. It mutates. We can't control if we are going to get sick, and we shouldn't be living our lives in this fear. Let these kids be kids. Let them breathe. Let them play in the dirt. Let them see their friends, teachers' faces, and not have this mask add to their already stressful days of worrying if their mask is on, if they're going to get in trouble for wearing it right. If you don't feel that it's time for them to come off, then it's not about the safety of our kids anymore, because they're doing more harm than good. A psychologist, Sylvan Tompkins, said, "The face is the seat of emotion." Covering our children's faces is covering personalities and their expressions. Their face indicates physical or psychological distress, and that's not to mention nonverbal communication, expressing fear, anger, sadness, or pain, all of which impact social engagement, growth, personality, confidence, and behaviors. This honestly worries me more than COVID. It makes me wonder if these masks are going to be responsible for mental illnesses later on in life. Masks should be a choice for everyone, not a mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Stephanie Smith again. Again, like I said, 2 kids, brand new here. My one who's a senior, very smart. He's in band. One thing he's complained about all year and didn't know if he was going to stick with it was they have to wear masks playing in band. He says it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, we came from overseas. They had it all figured out, this whole thing, but hopefully this goes away soon and he can actually blow his trumpet like he's supposed to. Another thing that he did have a question was, how many people have already made their choice before they even listen to what anybody has to say that sits on that board? It's a very valid question, because I've sat back there and I've watched the head bobbing. I've watched the looks of no, you right here and the colored one, when somebody brought up natural immunity, you shook your head no. Everybody has their choice to believe what they want to believe. But you know what? When you pointed out in your slide that 84% of Cumberland County is vaccinated, 75% of it's Windham, many, many people have had COVID, so you've got a lot of immunity going on out there. Masks aren't going to make a difference. They really are not making any difference. They have come out with a study, somebody else pointed out, cloth masks. The only one that's not wearing one is this young gentleman right here. The cloth masks do not work. So, I think he's wearing a KN95 one. Is that right? Yep. So the cloth masks, they don't work. They have come out. The CDC has come out and said that. So between the natural immunity, the high rates, and the vaccination of high rates, you don't need masks anymore. Let my kids who are new meet all these other kids that they have not been able to see their faces. They really haven't. And about not being able to see the teachers and stuff, I remember watching in August when you guys had the thing, and the kid came up here, and it broke my heart. I sat and cried when he talked about wanting to commit suicide for having to wear a mask last year. It broke my heart. And then his dad coming up and talking about that. It's just, yes, people do have compromised immune systems. I totally understand that. But if wearing a mask helps you, wear it. If you don't think you need it, don't wear it. Make it an option. That's all they're asking. Just listen to what is being said and don't already have your mind made up before, because I think that is kind of what is coming across to everybody, is that there are certain people that have not going to listen to what has been put out there. They've just already made their mind up, and this is what I'm going to choose. So just keep your mind open to everybody and what's best for the kids. Not what you think is best, but what's best for the kids.
Hey, my name's Melissa Carlberg. I've lived in Windham my whole life. I'm 40 years old. I am an alumni as well. I have 2 kids, one in primary and one in middle school. My heart's beating out of my chest because I do not do this well, so bear with me. I'm a hairstylist. I talk all day, not to this many people at once. Well, I have 3 minutes. So my dad died 2 years ago. I was diagnosed with his heart disease, and my son has heart disease in the primary school. I chose not to wear a mask today, not to, make a point or sit on one side versus another. I respect everybody's opinion, and I think a lot of these people do. I just want the choice. My older son, vaxxed. 2 vaccines. I was vaxxed. I was boosted. My cardiologist recommended it. My little guy, I took him to Hannaford to get vaxxed because he didn't want to have to wear a mask wherever he went anywhere, and I made him follow the rules. I'm not against going against rules. I made him follow the rules of wearing a mask wherever he went. And I'm a germaphobe, okay? My whole life, I had a sick dad. And my dad always said, you can't stop living your life to protect others. And my whole point with this is, my little guy went to Hannaford to get a vaccine, and he punched me, and he hit me, and he kicked me, and he is not that kid who gets upset. He's not afraid of getting a vaccine. He's had every vaccine. I've vaccinated my child against everything. He literally hit me and kicked me and punched me the whole time. He said, I'm not getting it. I haven't brought COVID home yet. I won't. 2 weeks later, my son came home from school where he wears a mask all day except for the 10 minutes he gets at lunch to eat, because there's not enough time to eat. He even brings his lunch in his little bag. He came home, he had COVID, he tested positive. My husband got it, my son and I did not test positive, we had the same exact symptoms. I wear a mask around everyone who asks me to. I own a business in this town, I'm respectful of everyone and everyone's choices, no matter what it is. I could be the one, I could be the number, I could be the person that dies. I have a comorbidity. I made a choice, I make it every day, and those are my children. I birthed them, none of you birthed my kids. I can make that choice, not you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move into board discussion?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Bellinger. I'm a Wyndham resident. I have 2 children in the high school. I have one that's graduated as well. My kids are over it. My kids have all been vaccinated because they thought, oh, if you get vaccinated, we don't have to wear the mask. I have a daughter who's the happiest go-lucky girl that you'd ever meet. And she's in special ed, and she's done with it. She's got belly issues that she would troop through them because she loves school so much. Most kids want a ride to school, not her. But lately, if she's offered a ride to school, she goes, oh, at least I don't have to wear my mask for a little bit. And she's just over it. And my other son is too. And I think it should be, I'm her mom, I'm her biggest advocate, and I always advocate for her. And I feel that, she's 18 now, but I still advocate for her, and if she doesn't want to wear a mask, that should be her right, not your right.
Thank you. Anyone else? I do just want to remind you that once we do close public input, you do not have the opportunity to come back up until tomorrow. Yes, thank you for that reminder. Thank you. Till the vote tomorrow. There is public input at the vote tomorrow. Okay, so seeing no, oh, go ahead, buddy.
When I've been at Manchester School, I've hated it. I've had to wear masks in 4th and 5th grade. It's been terrible. I've only been having, and this year they started making it so I can only take off my mask for 15 minutes. I think it's absolutely terrible. And the only time I can take it off for more than 15 minutes is at lunch because I'm not around the kids that are at my desk. I hate it, it's not good, and I can't pay attention with it on. Some of the kids in my school are getting in trouble for even having it under their nose. I hate it so much. I want to get rid of it. I can't pay attention to school anymore.
Thank you. All right, we will close public input at this point, and I will take any board comment. And you have to help. You have to be me and help see hands.
Oh, okay.
No, sure.
So thank you, everyone, for coming to the meeting tonight. I think this is our biggest crowd, other than what we had for last summer when I wasn't yet a board member. I wanted to make a few comments and statements, but I do have 2 questions for you, Chris. And you may have covered it and I missed it. I apologize if I did. But what is the definition of an outbreak under this new proposal?
50% of your population out on a given day for COVID.
From positive COVID, not symptoms.
Correct. So if you had 150 individuals out at roughly Wyndham High School.
Okay.
150 individuals.
Okay, so that's a lot.
Oh, sorry. My mic is off. 150.
Oh, sorry,
at Wyndham High School.
15% of positive COVID. Okay. Quarantine periods. Quarantine, I just want a clarification so everybody's on the same page. Is it from the date of first symptom or the date somebody tests positive?
I believe it's the date that somebody tests positive.
That was my understanding as well. Okay, thank you. Housekeeping. Just so, because a lot of people have said they haven't been to a meeting before, and we will be voting on this tomorrow night. Usually we don't have contentious votes, at least in my experience in the 6 months I've been on the board. But just so everybody understands, so 3 of us are Raymond residents. We have 3 seats on the RSU 14 school board, and then there's 6 Wyndham seats. Now, the way the RSU was first formed a gazillion years ago, the Raymond votes aren't worth as much as the Wyndham votes. So in order for the vote to carry to allow optional masking, we would need all 3 Raymond seats to vote for optional, plus 3 from Wyndham. So a simple majority will not have this pass due to the way the points are calculated. And so I just want to make sure people understand that, that, we have 9 people on the board, but if only 3 Raymond and 2 Wyndham people vote for optional, it will not pass. I want to make sure everybody understands that. One other thing that has been a frequent issue over the last few months, want to make sure that people understand that we are subject to state law and state regulation. So mandating quarantine periods or masking or any of the other stuff that's hot button is dictated by the state. We don't have a choice in that. So just make sure everybody understands that. And then on to my my comments. And again, I'm speaking from my personal position, not representative of the board, as I am a member of the board, but my personal positions. As we've seen in the news for the last few weeks, between science, changes in the science, Dr. Fauci, the federal CDC, and state CDC, anything less than an N95 mask does not work. It has been proven. So folks that are out there running around in anything less than an N95, it does not work. Even Dr. Fauci went on public TV and said it just a few weeks ago. They've also said that even if others are not masked, you are more protected by correctly and consistently wearing an N95 or greater protective mask. So for those folks, we've gotten some emails that express concern. It's been proven, been dictated by Dr. Fauci, and everybody knows that he's the expert. That if you're wearing an N95 properly and correctly, you are protected from other people that are not. It has been proven that vaccination does not prevent disease. Even those who follow proper masking and are fully vaccinated still get the virus. There's several people in this room that are in that situation. And several people watching from home that are as well, I'm sure. We all know that the majority of students do not consistently and correctly wear masks at school, and even fewer outside of school. Masking in school does nothing more than provide false sense of security. And frankly, why wait until Monday? The CDC recently changed, for those that hadn't heard, CDC recently changed the development charts for small children based on data from the last few years. And they have since lengthened the time or the age it takes to meet certain milestones based on that data. One can surmise that it's due to lack of social contact and covered faces for small children. I told a story last summer when I came to the public meeting that someone I know very well had a small child that had been, was about 18 months old when the mask mandates first started to lift in public places, and her child panicked when she took her into the grocery store for the first time and she saw people's faces without a mask. And you can't tell me that that does not do prolonged damage to children. You can't convince me of it no matter what. My last point, we need to get back to what we've always done. If you're sick, stay home. Thank you.
I just wanted clarification, Chris. Did you say 15% of the student-wide population or per school?
15% of the school. So you have to, it has to be a COVID-related illness that students are out for.
Okay.
To hit that outbreak status.
All right.
And if I'm incorrect on that, I will correct for tomorrow night, but off the top of my head, that's where we're at.
All right. I don't know if you recall, but that's not completely out of the realm of possibility, folks. February 3rd, 2020, I actually sent you an email because we were getting hit with a flu pandemic like we had not seen before, and there was cases all around the country of schools that are shutting down because of the flu. And at that particular time, my daughter was in middle school, and I asked you what percentage of the student body was out due to the flu, and on that particular date, it was 10%. So that's not a very high number. I have another question for you, Chris, if you don't mind. In your slide, you had mentioned that you thought that there was benefits to masking, but why make this recommendation if you feel like there's benefits to masking?
Say that again?
If you feel like there is benefits to masking, why make this recommendation?
Because I think we've reached that point with what's happening within the community and the amount of viral load that's out there that it's much safer to go without a mask.
Okay.
The other thing I'll also add, Scott, is that as I've mentioned all year long, we were under an SOP that required us to send kids home, trying to keep kids in school.
Okay. So viral load and keeping kids in school.
Yeah, we are in a very, very different spot.
Okay. I'm going to reserve the remainder of my comments for tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. My wife took a book out of the library recently, and group dynamics book, and she's an educator, and it sat around for 3 or 4 days. So one night on the treadmill, I said, "Hey, let me start I'll read to you. I'll read the first chapter." And I fell in love with the book, and it's about group dynamics. And all the stuff you could study about group dynamics, the key, this author was saying, was to feel safe in a group. And I want to thank you. I feel like you've just really someone already said it, but I just feel like this has been a real safe meeting tonight. And I think you've interacted a few times when you had to, but it's flowed. So I just think I don't want to lose that. I've mentioned before I work in Augusta, in politics, unfortunately, and there was an event this week where the main legislature, which is one of the few places that is mandated to wear masks, and then we all have to wear masks when we're there, they did their annual photo time, and I was a legislator, so it's a real cool thing, and we got a picture taken, and they took their masks off for a half hour, and then there was a surprise when they were done with the picture and they were going to go back to the legislature. They were in the same space, and some people said, "Well, why are we putting masks back on?" So I think my point being, we've been watching for a long time as leaders and advocates, sports stars, Hollywood, governors, have espoused these rules and then not follow them themselves. I don't know about the science. We could argue the science all night long, and probably all be right on some level. But, I mean, people way smarter and above me seem to think this is over. So I appreciate that you've brought this to us, which is my third point. I've felt very, what's the word I want to use? It's been frustrating. I came on 5 minutes before CHAR, so I came in time to vote on this. I actually didn't get to vote, but I came in for that time, and now I'm here as we're going to hopefully vote to get it done. But there was no time in between really to talk about it, and I've spent a lot of time thinking, what's my role here? What am I doing here if we're not talking about this more often? So I'm really just processing that there hasn't seemed to have been an outlet to talk about this except for the before and the after. But I want to close by, and probably again, saying some of the stuff you folks said. I think we could reflect on this, and you did to some extent tonight, on the science, and we wouldn't agree, we would agree. There's so much. I think I challenge us that over time that we reflect on this. And we see, as we've heard, people say why masks worked, and people say why masks didn't work. I hope we, over time as a board, or whoever's here after us, looks at it. We, 2 meetings ago, we didn't have a meeting 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before that, I think, we got stats that showed, I think, learning results when the kids were learning from home, and then when they got back in school, and it wasn't a full year, but it was pretty dramatic that just being back in school, the numbers went up a lot. So I hope we, as a board, or whoever follows us, does look to reflect on all this and learn from it. And I think the challenge too is now, as I think this gentleman said, it's not us and them. It's about kids. We just have to work together. Whatever this board decides to do and whatever you guys have to implement, I hope we just all put our heads down and say, let's go, let's work together.
Okay, so I just have a few questions, but I do want to say that I have not come in here with my mind made up. I've actually gone back and forth for multiple days. I read every email that comes in, every message that comes in. I've talked to many teachers, students, all of that, and I want to take all of that into account. So some of my questions are for you. The school bus mandate. I was reading, some people thought that it had already ended. It was March 18th, is that correct, or is it what we decide?
So originally March 18th under the federal transportation guidelines, which we've been under all year long, required any sort of public transportation that there was masking on it. That ruling changed with the most recent CDC guidance on February 25th, which basically follows that same, and I'll bring this up, the same thing with masking and buses. However, there's greater flexibility given to districts to make the decision whether or not they want to have students mask on buses or not.
In the plan, it says we would return to masking when the community level is high. And I know they're relooking those numbers and everything, but currently we're still in the red. So how does that work with this plan?
This plan would not be following the guidance that's there.
Okay.
And again, I think we're going to see some updated guidance fairly soon.
Okay. Which brings me to my next question. I've been watching a lot of Dr. Shaw today, and he was saying that one of his most recent recommendations right now, and he actually even admitted that it will change, which I expect it will. He said that right now he does not recommend removing masks at this time, but they're going to keep looking into next week. Is there any way to postpone that till we get his official guidance?
That's a decision that...
Just a question.
That's a decision that you guys need to wrestle with as a board, whether or not you want to do that. I think one thing to maybe consider in your deliberations is that what may possibly change within the next week or so that may be different.
Okay. Thank you. One other thing I want to mention is, yes, after Dave, I work in urgent care. I've been working on the front line since the very beginning. And trust me, I'm sick of all of this too. After day 5, if you are still symptomatic and it's sometimes not put out that way, you still need to quarantine. You don't just wear a mask and come to school and cough in everywhere. You really need to make sure you're starting to feel better before you do that. Just throwing that out there. I feel like it gets lost a lot of times. But thank you.
All right, Chris, a question on the plan. At one point, it was said that, or it's on a slide there, that if there was an outbreak within a class or a school, masking may be required. How would that get decided? That's like right now, the board's voting on whether we have universal masking or whether we have optional masking. When it comes to a situation like that, who has the authority to say, we're going to need to mask everybody in the classroom.
I think if we saw, actually, it would have to come back to the board. If numbers were such that they were growing, that we were reaching that point, the board would have to have an emergency meeting and help make that decision. You have the authority to do that under state statute.
All right, that's something that I needed to have clarified, because I don't want to have to keep voting on this stuff. And we know how long it takes. If there's an outbreak and we have a meeting where we have to discuss it, and then we have to wait until the next meeting to vote on it, it just kind of defeats the purpose at that point. So that's just one thing that I wanted to have clarified. That's it.
Okay, I need two clarifications. One, what Pete just said, 'cause I'm a little confused with this one. Okay. There's an outbreak in a room. How do we mask one room? Is that what we do? Okay, like Rebecca Cole's kindergarten, there's an outbreak. I mean, first grade, sorry. There's an outbreak. Does just her room? So how do you take one room and just mask them? Or does that mean the whole school gets masked again?
No, I think in that particular case, you'd want to take a look at the whole room and what are the mitigation strategies that you'd want to do. You'd want to consult with a nurse. There are no set metrics out there for yay or nay. What I really wanted to put into this proposal is an understanding that while things are great right now, there is always the possibility that things go south. And I want to make sure that we're preparing for all possibilities. As I also shared, I believe in my presentation, I do not want to go back to I don't want to get back into a situation where we're sending kids home because they have to quarantine or do other things. I have no interest in that. We have so much lost instructional time that we were required to implement. I don't want to go back to that. So to do anything that we can to mitigate, I want to keep kids in school.
Okay, great. The second one is the second half, and somebody had brought it up. Okay, so if somebody tests positive for COVID, they stay home for 5 days, they can come in for 5 days. Again, I think the question was asked, it's kind of like the 5 days that they're back with that mask on. Who monitors that? I mean, we can't hire a person who's just going to monitor children who are supposed to be masked for 5 days. Or is that going to be a kind of, you have no symptoms? I would assume after 5 days, and you had no symptoms, that would be the catalyst that would say you really should go back. But
Well,
with the mask.
you should be asymptomatic and you should be fever-free for at least 24 hours under the SOP to come back.
Okay.
There is the other option, which you're allowed as a board to have something that's more restrictive, and you could say that you go with a 10-day quarantine instead of a 5-day and then returning after. I think the monitoring piece is something that we would need to figure out. But that's an element under the CDC requirements for a person coming back after COVID. Fortunately, our case numbers have dropped significantly, and I hate to say the word hoping, because you're working off present data, but that we reach a point where this becomes a non-issue.
Okay, so is there a possibility, and I'm going to say this because I remember from way back, you're really contagious. I think it's the first, I'm going to get this wrong, it's the first few days when you come down with it. All right, so the thing being, is there a possibility that someone stays home for 5 days masked and comes back, and you would like them, hopefully they would wear a mask, but they don't?
We'd have to exclude them from school.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Not that I like the answers, but those are my questions. Anyway, I wanted to thank everybody that came, whether you were pro, whether you were con, and as everybody else said, all the email, it was great. You people, I've always told parents over all these years that the best advocate for your child is you. We love your kids, the teachers love your kids, the teachers do the very, very best, and I know because I go into schools all the time. I used to go in a lot more before COVID. I go into schools all the time, so they used to be dropping in, and the kids are great. The kids are great. They love their teachers. I can't begin to tell you how much they love their teachers. And everybody has done, you may like it, you may not like it, but everybody has done what we felt was the right thing. And it was very important to get the kids back in school, because being out of school was really worse for them. I know we hate masks. Everybody hates masks. My grandkids hate masks. In fact, my grandson said, are we not going to have to wear masks anymore? I said, I don't know, ask me in a few days. I said, being on the school board when you have kids or grandkids is not a great thing, because you get blamed for every single thing that happens, even in the cafeteria, like when they reduce your sandwich because there's too many carbs. So I want to thank everybody. You've done a great job advocating. Staff, I want to thank staff, because without you, we have nothing. Thank you so much, because you are the best. And that's all I got for now. And, all right.
What she said, it's funny, because we are here for the staff and the students. We want what's best for the students and the staff in the district. Most importantly, respect goes both ways. We should be respecting each other and what each other says, but also everyone needs to respect what we're saying also. We shouldn't be us and them. So thinking about respect going both ways, a couple of us were bullied tonight for the type of mask we were wearing. And that's not really right. I'm concerned about students in the classroom who choose to wear masks and get bullied by their classmates. And an email that we got that was a copy of a letter that was sent from another district, it was very clearly put, we don't want that to happen. And that's absolutely correct. No one should be bullied. Child, staff member, school board member, or anyone for choosing to wear a mask. Mine happens to be 3 layers, and I've got an insert that's a filter. So, making a judgment about what you think somebody's wearing or doing is not really okay. I have always tried to go on the way that I want to treat others the way I want to be treated. And I would really hope that others in this room, still a teacher at times, I am a teacher at times, almost called it a classroom, it's not. But I would really hope that everyone in here would try to respect an opinion that's not the same as theirs, and open their heart and their mind to treat others the way they want to be treated. And let's teach all of our children not to make judgments about anything, because we're talking about this very type of thing when it comes to what some are saying, CRT and color of skin and that kind of thing. Let's make sure we talk about it for a difference of opinion when it comes to a mask. Let's include that. Thank you.
Alex, do you want to?
I think in terms of the student perspective, the big thing is keeping kids in school. And there are obviously kids who don't want to wear masks. That's evident from the people in all the schools who walked out today during the school day. And there's kids who are fine with wearing masks or would prefer to wear masks. And I think the thing to do would be to make it optional, because if you're going to keep kids in school, you can't have kids walking out all the time to protest something like that. But at the same time, there's also the whole thing going around with respect and bullying, and I'm really happy Mr. Howell talked about that, because it has been a problem. There are kids who don't wear their mask correctly, and they're sitting on that side of the room, and the kids who do, they sit on this side of the room, and that's not a great school experience. It's not a good spirit to have. So if these rules can fix some of that culture and also keep kids in school, I think it's worth it, especially considering the fact that in August I was asking to wear a mask so I could go to school more is a really strange thing to think I would ever do. So I think it makes a lot of sense to go mask optional.
Thank you. Anyone else? Parks and thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to mention something that Marge had brought up, and the whole worry about the becoming the mask police for people that are coming back from quarantine. And I mean, it is a concern. It could be an issue, but when you draw parallels to other things, I think a lot of it just needs to become personal responsibility on part of the student if they're old enough, and on the part of families, because you know there's families that send their kids to school with the common cold or with the flu or belly bug or whatever. They shouldn't, but they do. And it's going to be the same thing with the masking. I mean, really, it comes down to how families are behaving, and I don't think it should fall on the teachers. I think just like the decision to wear a mask should be a decision that families make. You know, the decision to send a kid to school before he's supposed to, or you know, having your, you know, setting the expectation with your student that you are still under the 5 days, you should be wearing it. I mean, that's about the extent of what we should hope for, and I wouldn't want it to fall on the teachers.
Thank you. Anyone else? My turn. First of all, I want to thank Chris and Christine for putting all of this together, because I know that this was a constant moving target, and I'm sure you were updating this presentation up until 5:59 before you got over here. So thank you both for your work with that. I also want to thank the students. The two little guys aren't over there, but all the students that spoke today, thank you, because that does take some courage, and it's wonderful to hear your voices. I have a 10-year-old at home who feels very much the same as some of the kids that have spoken tonight, that she's sick of wearing masks, and it is a curse sometimes to be on the school board, because she has drilled me constantly when are masks coming off, and I don't want to give her a false sense of hope and say it's going to happen March 7th or Thursday or whatever, but I'm hoping I can give her some hope that this is happening soon, because she's said that exact same thing to me today, actually, on the ride home from school, that she has no idea what some of the kids in her classroom look like, and that just about broke my heart. So I'm very excited to hopefully see the end of this. We'll see. I agree. I think it should be a parent's choice, but we'll see how things go tomorrow. So we have just so folks know, we do have our regular meeting tomorrow. There will be an opportunity for public input on items not on the agenda, and then there will be an opportunity for public input on the recommendation before we vote. And I think that's it. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jessica was second.